The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Visit marketingcollege.com to see our courses.
Good evening and welcome to the Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. I'm your host, Kiran Kapoor, and coming up on the show, we return to the practicalities of social media. We have a review section with Terry Nicklin looking at 3 free tools designed for marketers. But first, we have the second half of my interview with Anne Godfrey, Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of Marketing.
The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Enhance your career with Cambridge Marketing Colleges.
Anne, you talked before about the CIM qualifications being world-class. Could you explain some of the changes you're making to the CIM qualifications?
Yeah, certainly. Like many professional bodies, we train and develop marketers from relatively junior roles all the way up to CMO. Many of our members, 12,000 of our 35,000, are what we call studying members. So they sign up to do our introductory certificate and hopefully stay with us all the way up to PG Dip. Our current offer, which we will keep going until December 2015, is very good. It's both academic and practical. However, it doesn't deliver training, particularly digital training, in the way that today's marketers might always be looking for. So what we've done, again, based on employer needs and marketer needs, is revisited what's good about the current qualifications and hopefully built something that's even better. So if I was to use an example, and I'm going to apologise, I'm going to sound like my learning director and use a technical term, once only. Our level 4 is what used to be our introductory certificate. We're relaunching that as we speak, and it will be called a Certificate in Professional Marketing. And instead of having 4 compulsory units, we're building it in a modular way. So people will be able to take bite-sized chunks. So if you want to do the whole thing, you'll do 2 mandatory units. So you have to do marketing, strangely, and integrated communications. Those are mandatory. But we will then build electives. And at the moment, we're launching with only 2, but we'll build probably another 8. The 2 that are launching are, from memory, customer experience and digital marketing. But if someone doesn't have the time or the money because their employer isn't paying or they don't have that much money themselves, they can come in and do a digital elective. Just pay for that. Go away for a year, come back again because they've got a bit more cash, do the mandatory, and then amend what electives they do because actually their job has changed. They have different expectations of themselves. So we will build something, I think, and I would, as I already said, call it world-class, something that will give digital throughout, integrated not just in its unit but in all the other ones. Mandatory, this is the stuff your employers have told us you want, but then allow career development. And I think that this, and it's something other professional bodies do, so I can't say we've come up with it ourselves, but I think it will be a genuine world-class offer.
So this is a change, and just to explain to the listeners, level 4 is equivalent to a degree level, is that right?
Level 4, if you were looking at degree level, that would be at level 6. So if you were to take a 3-year undergraduate degree in marketing or business studies with marketing, the level 4 is year 1, level 5 is year 2, and level 6 would be degree equivalent. So what we do with universities, and we've done quite a few, I think we've got about 60 signed up, is we actually map our qualifications against a 3-year undergraduate degree. And a mapped university can then offer its undergrads our certificate, diploma and advanced diploma at the same time as they give them their undergraduate experience. And for me, if I'm a mother, as I am, who's paying for 2 children, as I have, to go through a university degree, it gives them employability. So if somebody's little darling decides to drop out after year 1, but they've done our MAP qualification, they're going to come out of it with the introductory certificate to marketing. So for the university, it's adding value to their undergraduate marketing students. To the people who are paying, it's giving, I hope, increased employability. And for CIM, it's giving, hopefully, raised awareness of our brand and also awareness of us as an organisation that supports marketers.
And the big change, as I understand it, is you can, whereas previously, and of course I currently teach the qualifications, you would take them through in a fairly standard order. With your new qualifications, you can take one module, and that module is a standalone award in and of itself.
Absolutely. Yes. So at level 6, for example, which is the upper end that we're relaunching, the 2 electives are innovation, because it came top of every employer's wish list was they wanted marketers could innovate, and digital strategy for the same reason. So someone could come to us and just pay to get an award, and I think we're going to call it an award in professional marketing, digital strategy. And that, again, is the way people expect to access learning these days. They want to just dip in and dip out as and when they have a need.
And then they can go on and actually come back and complete the 3 modules if they want to and get the whole qualification.
Yes, and again, we used to have 4, it's now only 3. So people can, if they want, do as many electives. I'd be very happy if they did as they wanted. But to get either the diploma in professional marketing, level 6, or the certificate in professional marketing, level 4, you only have to do 3.
And if having finished those, I wanted to take another qualification, is there a higher level qualification?
We haven't touched our postgraduate diploma, so if people want to come back and do more, which they can come and do our level 7, which is the PG DIP, and obviously come back to us and do what I call our learning offer. So we have more than 100 courses ranging from online to 3-day residential, covering everything from sales to marketing to product development. So we don't say you only have to do the certificate or the diploma. If they want to continue to learn, we have all sorts of other things for them to do.
And when you were out and about doing the research for this, did you find that employers wanted qualified marketers?
They want commitment to professional development. So they want marketers who understand the core, can deliver specialisms, and can behave in an appropriately professional way with the rest of the team. And we got very strongly through, actually both from the marketers and the employers, that CIM members ticked higher on the commitment to professionalism and it's not really a surprise, I suppose. They had more explicit commitment to professional development because obviously they had done levels 4, 5, 6 and 7, or they were still learning and doing CPD, and that made me feel very good about my members, actually.
And thank you so much for explaining the qualifications. That was very interesting. Before you go, could you talk about some trends that you see coming up in marketing?
I think the single biggest trend, the one that most marketers talk to me about, is fragmentation. And I would probably talk about 2 different types of fragmentation. One in terms of channels, because there are now more channels that you can literally shake a stick at. And marketers are having to address the old ones, so the nice things like direct and copywriting and talking to customers in the old ways, then everything that technology gives them. So social and everything that comes with it. So that type of fragmentation and how marketers and their departments do more with less is something I hear almost screamed at me from marketers. And the second is what that means for them as departments dealing with those specializations, if that's the word, which is if you've got an increasing number of specialisms, how do you as a marketer develop if you get pigeonholed? How do you as a marketing manager deal with that fragmentation of your team? How do you stop there being silos? So if you've got the D word being the sexy thing, everybody wants to be digital, how do you build a capability that does everything else as well? And the lovely phrase that I get from the bigger corporates is T-shaped. So if you've got lots of specialists and then they get promoted, how do you go from being the leg of the T to being the bar of the T? Because all of a sudden, a specialist is managing a team who are doing brand, product marketing, content marketing, you name it, but all they've ever done is one thing. So that fragmentation piece, both in terms of dealing with all the channels and dealing with the marketers, is probably the single biggest trend we see at the moment.
That's great. And what about international? Is that something that you have ambitions to move the CIM into? Is it something that marketers should be concerned about?
International is a huge opportunity, and I would split my answer into 2 on that. We have, of our 35,000 members, 10,000 are outside of the UK, and the areas where we're growing fastest are where there are professional practicing marketers. So I would use United Arab Emirates actually as being our biggest single growing market. And what we've got there isn't a deliberate CIM opened an office, which we've got in Hong Kong or Singapore, but 200 marketers who are CIM getting in touch with us saying, we're here, you're a membership body, can you please support us and do stuff for us? So yes, I think CIM is international and should be global. Are we truly global? No. Is it an opportunity? Yes. But I'd quite like to get our proposition clear before we do anything dramatic. And secondly, for marketers, marketing is a global skill. You know, it's a great thing to be because you can go anywhere in the world. So we should be where they are.
And I believe I'm right in saying the CIM is the world's largest membership organisation for marketers. Is that right?
We are. We don't think there's anybody with 35,000 members, all of whom are marketers. I could be wrong, and I'm willing to be disproved, but it's quite an impressive number, so I'll stick by that statement.
Quite right too. Anne, thank you so much for sparing us the time and coming on the show. We've really appreciated it.
You're more than welcome.
The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Visit marketingcollege.com to see our courses.
Anne, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. If you missed the first half of Anne's interview, you can find it at star107.co.uk. And now we have our review section, and Terry Nicklin returns to the show and gives us the information on 3 free tools designed for marketers.
Yes, that's right, Karen. I'm a fanatic for sort of picking up these ideas for things that are ideally free and certainly cheap, and that can be useful in improving one's sort of productivity. So I actually keep a huge list at home, and I've just pulled out 3 here, which some people may have heard of some of them, and let's just see how it goes. But the first one, which I'm sure most people will have heard of, is MailChimp. MailChimp is a great example of a digital tool. It's a free email client. And it's a good example of how in digital marketing we've got tools now which are cheaper, more measurable and more targetable than ever before. So MailChimp allows you to create nice looking emails, to manage subscriber lists, to send out emails, and to measure the effect of those in terms of open rates and click-through rates and so on. It handles all the admin tasks like handling the unsubscribes or any bouncers of email. It allows you to personalise emails, so you can send, Dear John and so on sort of emails to people. It allows you to do really clever things like A/B testing. So you could pick a little bit of your database, send them one version of an email, pick another little bit and send them another version, and MailChimp will automatically compare the responses from the 2 parts and then send the better of the 2 email types to all the rest of the database. And it does all that automatically. So that's a great fun little tool, I think. And I think you can send something like about 12,000 emails a month for free. And if you need more than that, then there are paid for packages as well that you can go for. And it seems to have, to me anyway, most of the tools of a professional package. Of course, if you need a professional package, if you need huge numbers of emails, if you need really beautifully designed templates and so on, then yes, there are plenty of commercial packages out there. But for anyone who's not doing email right now, I would certainly recommend giving MailChimp a try. The second tool is one designed for anyone who has responsibility for a website, so that's many marketers these days, and it's a tool called SiteBeam, available at sitebeam.net, and it provides detailed website analytics, similar to Google Analytics in many ways, but it will analyse the site according to a number of criteria. So it will look at things like content, how well written is the content, what about the quantity, how often is the content updated. It'll look at things like search engine optimization, how well optimized is the site, what HTML version is it written for, how is social media used, page titles and all those kind of things. It looks at technology, CSS, loading speed, broken links, and all of those other things that are concerning to marketers and webmasters these days. And it looks at things like accessibility too, to people with disabilities or for mobile users. And SiteBeam gives you around 10 free uses, which is enough to check your own website from time to time. And you can also check other sites, so why not check your site against your competitors, for instance. Again, if you want more functionality and more uses, then they have various subscription packages from $60 upwards. And the third tool is an incredibly simple thing. Couldn't be simpler. It's just how I like software, really. Very, very straightforward and a tiny little package. It's called Pipette. Pipette, and it's a way of allowing you to sample colours on the screen. If you're one of the marketers who puts presentations together or perhaps does some designing in-house, the ability to be able to pick a colour and to know what the exact colour is in terms of RGB or CMYK or hex coordinates is really useful. You might be putting together, say, a PowerPoint slide and you want to draw a little box or some text and you want it to have exactly the same colour as your logo, for instance. Pipette can do this for you literally in a few seconds, and it's fantastically useful. As I say, of course, completely free.
The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Enhance your career with Cambridge Marketing Colleges.
Thank you, Terry. And now we return to the practicalities of social media marketing with Neil Wilkins of Viper Marketing. Neil has been on the show before talking about the various aspects of social media marketing. So Neil, let's get down to some nitty-gritty. How do I go about getting followers?
So to get new followers, there are three things we really need to be focusing on, and this is very much from the perception of the customer themselves. So what they're looking for is for you to be perceived as current, relevant and informed. Now those three things, the combination of those three things start to make you very sort of likeable, if you like, in sort of social media speak, and very shareable. If you're producing content that's very current, then people will engage. If it's very relevant to them, then they'll be able then to digest it and then share it with people that they feel would also be interested. And this point about being informed as well, they're looking to get some value. What this is not about is just trying to sell through social media. What you're looking to do is probably the amount of activity that you do, probably 90% of it is adding value to the customer experience. Just 10% of it is probably a sales kind of message. Because if you can provide value, if you can provide really sort of great content that, inspires people to do something, that really sort of adds to, their fulfillment in their online experience, then what you're doing then is you're getting true engagement. And that then leads to a sale. It's not about just promotion and pushing messages out there. It's about getting into that conversation, and people will then start to follow. And what you'll find is you will get a lot more followers and a lot more people seeing you as relevant if you focus on those three things.
So Neil, that sounds like I'm putting quite a lot of work in to add value, which isn't necessarily going to relate to sales. So how do I plan and resource my social media?
Planning and resourcing the social media is a really key thing to start thinking about. The essence of this is that less is more. In other words, what you're not looking to do is to become busy for busy's sake. I think that's a really key thing. You're not looking to be active in every single social network. You're not looking to be spending 24/7, probably 24/7 doing this stuff. I mean, the really sort of key thing about this is to identify maybe 2 or 3 social networks where you know your customers are most active, where you know that you're likely to get the best engagement, and where you can actually see that those social networks are actually contributing to a very, very defined customer journey. In other words, what you don't want is 50 different networks that you're having to spend, every hour of the day servicing and sort of being involved in. Just selecting 2 or 3 that are the most relevant to you as an organisation. And that decision really isn't yours. It's actually where the customers are most active. So by doing a little bit of research up front, finding out where they're already active, having a really clearly defined sort of picture, if you like, in your mind of who that customer is, and then just really focusing all your time and energy on those 2 or 3 social networks, but making sure that actually what comes out of the other end of that activity, as I said a little bit earlier, is very, very defined in terms of leading to new business. In other words, you have a conversation, and then what happens? Where do you want the customer to go? So making it very, very obvious where they go next. And that could be to your website, it could be picking up the phone, it could be redeeming a voucher, whatever it happens to be that you want the customer to do next. And what you'll find is that if you keep that in mind as you're doing your social networking, then what happens is it becomes very, very focused. So you don't do quite as many sort of chatty things. You're doing things with a real purpose.
Thank you. I know one of the things that worries people about social media is the idea that you can get a lot of negative feedback. There's quite a lot of press talk about people getting bad feedback on Twitter and what have you. So is there a way of dealing with negative feedback?
I think the best way of dealing with negative feedback is to start by accepting that it's going to happen anyway. I mean, a true and real acceptance that your organisation is going to be talked about, whether or not you put your head in the sand and say, well, let's just not look and find it because it's going to be too uncomfortable, or whether actually you're very active in social media and then it just comes in as part of that sort of day-to-day activity. Whichever angle you take as a business, the very sort of harsh reality is that there is going to be negative, there is going to be neutral, and there is going to be positive. And I think once that is established, starting point that you accept that, part of what is going to happen could be negative. Once you accept that as an organisation, then you can start then to proactively plan. And what I mean by that is that you can start to then think, well, okay, if something negative happens, and we can identify where it is, we can identify who's there, and then very transparently, very much in the public domain, we can go back and, if we've made an error or if we've under-delivered on a promise or whatever it is, actually own up and do it very, very publicly. The organisations who are starting to do that, a lot of the big consumer brands now are doing this, and essentially what happens is that all of your advocates, the people who are very sort of loyal customers, will actually jump on and say, well, look, that's an unusual problem because I've had great service and great experience and things with this organisation. And you'll find that by doing this in public, you'll find that there'll be a lot of support. So it won't be just you saying, actually, we own up, we did make a mistake there, but we're putting things right. What happens is that the people who then are supportive of you will also back up that comment. Now, of course, what happens then is if the organisation or the individual then keeps coming back with negative comment, you then obviously reserve the right to say, well, look, this is obviously something we need to talk about in a lot more detail, so let's take this offline. Let us call you or let us email you directly. But I think up to that point, most of, and probably 90% of any negative comment that you get can be dealt with in a very open kind of forum. And after all, it is social media, and social by definition means that, it is very much out there in public. So I think that the more you engage with that kind of philosophy, the more successful you'll be.
Are there any pitfalls that a business should be aware of if they want to go into social media?
I think one of the big pitfalls of moving into this is the initial momentum running out. I think what generally happens is that there's this great big lust for publishing content and ideas and maybe blogging and that kind of thing in the early days, and it gets a really great momentum going, and then as time goes by, the reality of other operations, the rest of the organisation, pressures, going off and being distracted, going off in different directions as a business, all of those things then come into play, and time becomes, very pressured. And often, if people are publishing content on a particular subject, they, after a while, start to run out of things to say. So I think the whole idea behind this would be to very much sort of plan ahead. Don't put everything out there all at once. Think about creating a timeline whereby, you'll be talking about certain subjects into the next year. So maybe go month by month with certain themes of things that you're going to start to sort of see with conversations in social media, maybe certain incentives, maybe certain promotions or campaigns, but spread it out. And I think certainly by doing it in that kind of phased way, you'll find that actually you can keep the momentum going. People don't need everything all at one time. So I think doing it far more steadily gets people into the sort of pattern, into the phasing of it. So when the customers see it, they kind of know the frequency that you're going to be publishing, and that kind of thing becomes then a lot more balanced rather than just loading everything up at the start and then stopping. I think that is probably the worst way of doing it. So create a little bit of a time plan, a little bit of a timeline.
Neil, just to finish us off, thank you so much for coming on to the show. And if any people want more information about you, they should go to your website, which is vipermarketing.co.uk. Did you have any sort of top tips that we could finish up with?
I think the main tip for people, individuals or companies looking to get active in social media is something that I call the social media rule of thirds. This breaks down the kinds of things that you'd be talking about when you're in social media into three sections, and avoids the drive towards having to always be trying to sell through social networking. The first third is something that we call personal. So this is actually sharing things that you or your organisation are doing. So it might be charitable work, it might be getting to know somebody who is the face of the organisation, it might be sharing, things that you as a business are doing. Not overtly sort of sharing all the crown jewels, but very much allowing the target audience to get to know you. The second third is something that we call free stuff, which is signposting to interesting articles, interesting videos or features that you might have seen actually in your travels. Now, this might be within your sector, within the industry that you're in, or it could even be further afield if you think it's going to add some value and interest to the target customers that you have. This is a really important third because it makes you unpredictable. The last thing in social media that you want to be is predictable, and this basically then stops people from just knowing what's coming next. So that it keeps you always sort of front of mind, but it allows you to always have, open ears when you're trying to communicate with a target audience. And of course, those open ears then are then going to be more receptive to the final third, which is the overt sale. So people obviously understand you're in business and you want to be talking about products and services, but as long as you've done those previous 2/3 on balance, then they're going to be much more receptive to the kinds of things then that you want to sell to them. So the social media rule of thirds seems to work across all different sectors and industries, and again, stops you from just using social media to sell.
That's great. Neil, thank you so much for coming on the show. That's Neil Wilkins, Managing Director at Viper Marketing. You can find all about Neil at vipermarketing.co.uk.
The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Visit marketingcollege.com to see our courses.
And that is it for the show this time. If you would like more information or you'd like to listen to the show again, then head over to star107.co.uk where you can do just that. I've been your host, Kiran Kapoor. If you would like to get in touch with me, you can do that at the Marketing Review Facebook page or at #CMC Points of View on Twitter. Many thanks for listening, and I'll be back again in 2 weeks' time.
The Marketing Review with Cambridge Marketing Colleges. Enhance your career with Cambridge Marketing Colleges.